good as, and then you would say something after that. So I don't know, this food I'm having right now, this breakfast, it's good as, I don't know.
Sex on the beach.
And that's it. Exactly. So I think that's where it stems from.
Got it.
Yeah. The other
Got
one
it.
is
That's cool.
heaps good. Like that's heaps good.
Heaps have
Yeah. Yeah.
heaps have I've heard a lot. I like that one.
Yeah.
And
Well,
cunt, I always will forever love calling people cunts. So that was a good one.
dude, you're a true Australian then.
That's it.
Australian blood.
Hmm.
Yeah, cool as. Anyway, yeah, so general outline. So I love to just flow, dude. I think the best conversations come from just like for me personally, it's following my curiosity. And so yeah, man, I've got a few questions and general themes I feel like would be awesome to just chat about in these 2 hours. But I'm also interested just in your input before we get into it as well. So a few little notes I've got here. First up, dude, I'm gonna blast your Instagram, dude, for everybody. I love your fucking Instagram. It is so good, and I'm so glad you returned. And I've just started going to the gym again after a few years. I'm so excited to be going. And dude, I've already implemented some of your stuff in the gym, and I just feel so blessed that when I occasionally when I get into my habit of doom scrolling or just sort of mindless scrolling, I'm so glad your feed pops up. It like adds value, you know.
Oh, thank you, dude.
Yeah, so it's so great. Um, so yeah, dude, I'm going to share that straight up. But yeah, then I'm interested in learning more about. I'd really, if you're open to sharing, like your recovery story. I'm
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
more details on that and what you were doing before that in terms of your work. Like, the last time we chatted, I think was 3 years ago. Working for Crux Fitness and everything. I don't know what the case is now, like whether you're still at Crux or you're running PK Health on top of that. But anyway, we can get into that. I'm just curious, what were you doing? Then when did the recovery happen and the injury? And then a bit about what you're doing now, and then we can sort of get into some other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so something like that. And then I'd love to go into just some general questions I have about gym, and they're pretty like basic bitch foundational questions. But I'm
No, man.
specifically
Dude, there's no dumb questions.
sure, yeah. We'll just dive into it, and I'm specifically interested in your opinion because and what you have to say, because the informational environment these days, it's crazy. It's amazing. I started this YouTube channel 8 years ago, but what's evolved, the amount of information people are trying to sift through is absolutely insane. In fitness industry specifically, people, you know it all, right? Like one person's saying do this, one person's saying don't do that. People are getting fucking confused. Like, do I do this? Do I do that? It's insane, and I'm sure you experience this in your work, not just in
Yeah,
the
no
online
doubt.
environment, but in person. So, dude, I'd love to hear what you got to say for some of these things. Um,
Hmm.
and then if we have time, maybe a little bit, I'm curious, a little bit about Psalms. Maybe we don't even go there. I don't know. I think maybe if we just touch
Okay.
on it, but we don't need to get into the crazy complexities of it all. We could be here all day.
Okay.
But Psalms,
So the SARMs peptides steroid category of discussion, I have zero familiarity with.
okay, sure. In that
Yeah.
case, we're nice
So
and
that's
specific.
yeah,
Great.
yeah, definitely. I don't want to be speaking on my ass
Yep.
and adding more into the fucking fucking swamp of misinformation.
Yeah, sure. Sure. All right, no worries, dude. We'll fucking scrap that. That's just coming from my own just innate desire to have an altered state experience, and I start sort of creeping. And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do steroids, but apparently Psalms are better. Maybe I can. And I'm sort of like, hang on a minute, Brandon, just slow the fuck down. Remember the basics and the foundation. Yeah. So anyway, that's just my own crap. That's fine. But then psychedelics, dude. Like you're wearing a MAPS shirt,
Absolutely.
you're supporting the psychedelic movement. To me, that's a big plus. And I think my audience who watch me now, viewers listening in, yeah, it's sort of the channel over time has gone from self-improvement to sort of start it as my journey's changed, sort of moving
Cool.
into spirituality, and psychedelics have been part of my journey. And I think hearing from you, very knowledgeable in fitness, self-improvement, from what I see, and then just being into psychedelics, I'd love to just hear some of your thoughts on that as much as you're willing to share. Very curious.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's a broad outline. How does that sound?
Excellent.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. All right.
Good to go, man.
Good. Great. I'm excited. All right. Let's fucking launch into it. So first of all, I've just got to address some things for YouTube. So in this conversation, we do not promote the use of drugs. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. And we do not give medical advice. So enjoy, everybody. Sweet as. So let's get into it. First, since I haven't made a video in about 7 months, since I'm not super active on my YouTube, in the last year, I'm just going to address my viewers here real quick. Where I've been, just in a nutshell, just been doing the work without being online, really. I've been posting less on social media. I've been very much just balls deep into self-realization, enlightenment, spirituality, consciousness. Let's like fucking find out the secrets of life. So yeah, that's where I've been. So YouTube hasn't been my top priority, but I am so glad to be here with Patrick, with you, Patrick. And dude, well, I'm so excited for this. So fill my viewers in real quick. So how we got here to be on YouTube after like 8 months or wherever I've been is, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, just got back to the gym. I was in a bit of a negative mindset. Not a bit. I was really in a negative mindset. Fell into some patterns, and I thought, fuck, I think back, and every time I went to the gym, 3 weeks after going to the gym, I just have a change in my mental well-being. And then coincidentally, Patrick's just sort of come back from his recovery journey or wherever the heck he's been. And dude, I was just so excited. Your content makes me laugh so much, Patrick. Your sense of humor, I love it. Even just following you just for your sense of humor, give me a laugh. It's the kind of energy I want to be around. It's fantastic. So very positive. By the way, viewers listening in, if you do get anything out of this video and the conversation we're about to have, follow Patrick on Instagram. I've got a pin in the comment. Just fucking click follow. You will not regret it. Go for it. Cool. So yeah, so I'm here. Patrick, fantastic. So yeah, let's just start off with just to fill the viewers in. We met about 3 years ago. I did some work with you guys, yeah, on your YouTube channel back in the day. And so I just want you to fill the viewers in, like what is it that you currently do for work? So let's start there, and then yeah, we'll flow from there.
Sure. I am a strength and conditioning coach, which is basically a fancy term to say that I am a personal trainer that also works with some high-level athletes. And that is what I do for work, man. I'm just trying to upgrade the human vehicle.
Yeah, heaps good. All right, awesome. And so you've just come back on the Instagram with all this sick content. Where have you been? Really interested in, sounds like you had an injury and you've been in recovery for quite some time, and I'm sure you've learned many lessons. So take us back. When did you have your injury? What were you feeling? And then where did it go from there?
Okay, so I injured myself real bad in March of 2021. I was snowboarding in the backcountry, zipping through the trees. The day, it was a bit of a meh day for snowboarding. The visibility was really poor, very foggy. And so I'm zipping through these trees in the backcountry. Before I know it, I realize I'm about to send it off a massive cliff. But I realized too late, so I try to brake real hard. Didn't brake in time, and as a matter of fact, the way that I tried to brake and stop my forward momentum led to me clipping a little tree root on the way down on my heels. And I clipped this tree root on the way down, and I start somersaulting and tumbling backwards down this maybe 40 to 60 foot cliff, where it's just rocks and trees at the bottom. Straight drop.
Nice.
So I'm tumbling through the air, and this is it, man. Like, it fucking sucks, but I'm about to die now. Luckily I didn't die. I wake up I'm stuck in this tree. Disoriented. I was knocked unconscious apparently, which funny enough, like I've never actually been knocked unconscious. Did you know that it's kind of a seamless experience? Because I know you're into like consciousness and stuff like this. Really, when you get knocked out, so apparently people saw it happen. So they said I was knocked out for a couple of minutes. So you would think that it might feel like you've been asleep for a couple minutes, but no, it goes so seamlessly from me tumbling backwards in the air and thinking that I'm going to die to all of a sudden the next moment I'm stuck in this tree branch, not even knowing that I was knocked out.
Fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyways, interesting. That's a little tangent, but
Yeah.
the aftermath of this injury was that I fractured my face, sustained a severe concussion, the worst one I've had in a long history of concussions in my life. And it turns out that even when they scanned my brain on an MRI, I smashed my head on this tree stump or on a rock or whatever it was so badly that I now have scar tissue in my frontal lobe. So quite a severe traumatic brain injury. And once again, it was in March of 2021. And what happened from that point on was that I slowly recovered, and I was getting back to my feet, literally and figuratively, up until the winter of 2022, when I went snowboarding again, when I was only maybe 60% recovered from my injury. Hit a jump because I was just feeling myself. On the jump, as I land, it's called stomping the landing in snowboard culture, where you really try to, like, you know, fucking like get down into it. But that little bit of like whiplash ended up giving me a severe headache, which was obviously related to my initial brain injury from the previous year. I continue snowboarding throughout the weekend, and I feel okay. I'm feeling very off, but I feel okay enough to snowboard. And throughout the next few weeks, the headache and the concussion symptoms slowly start returning. But I had just gone through an entire year of rehab, of not being able to do any really physical activities, only being like 50% capacity at work and all these things. So I didn't want to believe that I had reconcussed myself.
Sure.
So for the 3 or 4 weeks after this little, you could call it a reconcussion as I snowboarded, I just ignored all my symptoms, and I kept pushing through with work. I kept pushing through with training. I kept pushing through with physical activity and sports, to the point where it got so bad where I was always at an 8 or 9 out of 10 headache, and I couldn't remember anything. I remember the day that I realized I had to take some time off and heal, which is when I was at the mall getting my passport photos taken.
Yep.
And after I got my passport photos taken, I paid the lady. Then I turned around, then I walked back, and then I paid the lady once again. And then I was like, okay, well, fuck, the memory's gone. The headache is severe. Wow. Even when I walked, my brain was so sensitive to impact and vibration that every time my heel would hit the floor, I could feel the reverberation of the impact travel up from my foot all the way up into my skull, and it would trigger an even more splitting headache. So all of these symptoms let me know that I had to just completely take time off work, time off training, time off just everything in life, and just heal up. So that's what I've been doing for the past year, from March of 2022, you could say, to present day. Has been the gnarliest and most difficult and most emotionally, mentally, physically taxing journey of my life. But I'm happy to be back now. And I've learned a lot of things along the way that hopefully can help you and your listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's intense. So I'd imagine, like, you know, fitness being, you know, well, I won't speak for you, but it seems like your life. I mean, it's your work, it's your job, and it's one of your passions, right? So when you're, let's say, after that decision, like where you really like, right, man, I've got to step off of this, and actually just not physically exert myself. And maybe you did a little bit to some degree, but like what does your mind start telling you? You're a week, you're sitting on the couch or whatever you're doing. Are you getting patterns come in that are like saying, you gotta be doing something, you gotta be progressing, you gotta be there for your clients? What's your mind telling you at that point on the couch?
Yeah, absolutely. So you always end up playing this tug of war in your own mind, where on the one hand, you feel like you need to be contributing to society and helping people get healthy and training your clients and doing all these things. But on the other hand, there's absolutely no chance in hell that you're even able to go for a 10-minute walk, let alone train clients or get back to work. Yeah. So yeah, man. And that is such a key component, or a key challenge to get over in any kind of recovery from chronic illness, because if you do not let your nervous system fully rest, and you always have this battle going on in your mind that you should be doing more, that you shouldn't be resting, that you have all this anxiety about not being productive enough when really you should just be resting and doing fuck all.
Yeah.
Your nervous system is unable to downregulate.
Right.
You can't chill, which means that you can't heal. So yeah, for the first few months, as you kind of alluded to during this recovery process, I really was not recovering as fast as I could have been, because I kept getting in my own way, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. It's really comes down to the mind, eh? Like, all seems to stand back there. So coming out of this, what would you suggest to someone if they were in a very similar situation to you, where they're used to, I actually find this a lot of a common pattern among the young men I've encountered, and that is they always feel like they have to be doing something or progressing. And if they're not, they go fucking crazy. So if someone like that is injured, have a big injury, and they're just starting to see that, now let's say they don't even see that, but they do recognize that they're not getting better faster, what would you say to them? They're saying, man, I just want to get back in the gym, bro, or I just want to get back into my fitness. I'm nothing without it. What would you say to them?
So is this somebody with a concussion, with a brain injury, or would this be somebody with just some kind of chronic injury, musculoskeletal injury, like a shoulder pain or a knee or a back that prevents them from doing activities? Because they're two very different things and two very different ways to recover.
Sure. Let's go for a boxer who's like trying to box and box competitively. So he's sort of starting out. He's got a bit of skill. He's moving up the ranks, and he just wants to go for it like fucking boxing, but he's got a concussion. I don't know the technical specs, but let's say it's not like a severe concussion, but it's not just like a little tiny concussion either. It's somewhere in between, like a mild concussion. Where do we go from there?
Okay, so number one, according to the research, and as another tangent, the research on concussions is hilarious, because they always take these little hammers and they hit mice in the head, and they do all these little tests to see how long it takes for the neurons to recover and the brain to rewire itself. But anyways, according to the research, for humans, the physical damage of a mild traumatic brain injury, which, to define it, is basically just any kind of concussion. A traumatic brain injury, or a severe traumatic brain injury, is something where you end up in a coma. So as long as you're not in a coma, it's just a regular concussion, minor traumatic brain injury. According to the research, it takes anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks for the physical bits of your brain to repair and rewire themselves, however it is that they're going to repair and rewire itself. So during that 4 to 8 weeks, that's when you absolutely should not be doing anything at all to rattle your brain any further.
Right.
So zero sparring, zero boxing, zero impactful activities. At the same time, during this 4 to 8 week period, the most important thing that you can be doing to support this regeneration of neuronal growth, and to support this support your healing, is to just live a healthy lifestyle. So you should be eating an anti-inflammatory diet, whole foods, tons of water, meat, high protein. You should be getting your sleep on point, your sleep hygiene. Make sure you're sleeping 8-9 hours a day. You should be exercising every day, again, in a way that does not involve any kind of impact. So stationary bike is good, lifting weights is good, walking, running, doing anything that isn't impactful. So that's what you're doing for the first 4 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
After the first 4 to 8 weeks, then any concussion issues that you have are just functional rather than structural, meaning that any of the symptoms you feel is your brain playing tricks on itself, and it's got nothing to do with the structure of your brain being damaged. Does that kind of make sense so far?
Go on, yeah.
Okay, so after 4 to 8 weeks, all the problems that you have, whether it's dizziness, confusion, headaches, memory loss, whatever it may be, are all functional. It's your brain playing tricks on itself. Because it's your brain, and this is a concept called central sensitization. That's your brain putting the emergency brakes on itself, or putting the emergency brakes on your body, because it thinks that you're a crazy bastard who's going to go out and box again. So it's doing all of these things, giving you a headache, giving you dizziness, giving you indigestion, giving you confusion and memory loss in an attempt almost, and this is definitely an oversimplification, but it's almost like an attempt where your brain is trying to protect itself from further harm. Right. Now, the only way out of these functional symptoms are to move into the things that are giving you symptoms. So I'll give you a concrete example, which for me, one of my functional symptoms, as I described previously, was that I couldn't even walk, let alone run or drive, because every little bump in the road or every step I took would send this reverberation, this vibration, this impact all the way up into my skull, and it would trigger a headache. What I didn't know back then, which made my recovery last so fucking long, over a year, what I didn't know back then that I wish I knew was that with these symptoms, the key is to go straight into the activities that are causing the symptoms with an attitude of mindfulness and curiosity. Because you can think of it as like a somatic PTSD. Yeah. Right? Let's say you have a veteran who goes to war. He comes back, every time he hears a siren or a honking on the road, he has this massive headache, and it triggers like a severe migraine. Because he's reliving that experience, his nervous system is freaking out because of what he's experienced in the past. Yeah. So similarly with a concussion, if you have headaches that are caused by running, let's say, that's just your brain playing tricks on you. And the way out is the same way that a psychologist would get someone out of OCD. Yeah. The way out is exposure therapy. You have to do the activities that bring on the symptoms at a low enough dose that you can actually manage it. Right? Because if you go too much, let's say if I tried to go for a run that was 30 seconds, okay, my headache triggers up to a 9 out of 10. I can handle it. I can do some deep breathing exercises to bring myself back down to baseline. Now the next week I go to do that 30-second run, it's maybe a 7 out of 10, and you gradually expose yourself more and more and more. Sure. Yeah. So what I was saying is that you don't want to overdo it, because that will absolutely, let's say again in my example, if I were to do a 10-minute run, and I'm constant, as I'm going through this run, I'm pushing through this 9 out of 10 headache, and it keeps building, 10 out of 10 headache, even a fucking 11 out of 10 headache, where all of a sudden your brain you kind of figuratively curl up into a fetal position, almost having a panic attack, because you just cannot tolerate all of the sensory input. You just can't tolerate it. So obviously you don't want to do that. So the way out of all these functional symptoms is, at the right dosages, you have to move straight towards whatever activity that's causing your symptoms and build up in a gradual approach. And the most important piece of that is, once again, engaging in these activities with an attitude of mindfulness and curiosity, which I would love to dig into in regards to how the brain works in creating unnecessary suffering and pain sometimes.
Absolutely. So let's take it from here then. I'd love to move into the topic of mindfulness. But just before that, just to make sure I understand you and those listening in, the way I understand what you've just shared here is, let's take the analogy of not something necessarily related to a physical injury, but let's say when I was, I think, 8 years old, I was on vacation, what am I, American? Holiday. I was on a holiday, and I stepped on a snake. Fucking, it scared the lights out of me, dude. I turned around, I thought I'd stepped on, I don't know, a sock or some bullshit left on the ground. And I turned around, it's just a snake staring me in the eye. And I freaked out. I ran to my parents, to our campsite, and I was screaming my head off. And bro, that scared the lights out of me. So if my goal then was to, let's say from now on, I'm scared shitless of snakes, and I want to overcome my fear of snakes, which causes a massive physiological reaction in me. It's not just mental, it's fucking all in my body. Fuck, there's a snake. If what I did was, instead of like avoiding snakes for the rest of my life, I actually confronted some snakes, I could actually do that, come in with it with mindfulness and curiosity. But what I wouldn't do is just get a big fucking basilisk, stick it around my neck, and just like let it sit there and go, oh, I'm at one with the snake, I'm all peaceful. I wouldn't do that. From what I hear, what you're saying is we gradually sort of introduce it. So maybe we have a snake at a zoo in an enclosure behind the glass door. It's a small snake. It's not venomous. and I could be mindful with it. And then I could gradually build up to, I don't know, bigger and bigger snakes, something like that. That's roughly how I understand what you're saying, but for an injury. Is that?
Yeah, that's absolutely the mindset. That is absolutely the mindset. It's gradually exposing you to yourself to these things. Then when the physiological signs and symptoms come on of your body freaking out, like you said, it's not just the mind causes the body to freak out. So when you catch these signs and symptoms, oh shit, my hands are getting sweaty, my heart rate is super fast, and you consciously tell yourself, okay, well, let me do some deep breathing. Let me assess the situation. Am I objectively in any danger right now? No, the snake is behind the glass. So let me just keep looking at the snake while I'm simultaneously doing my breathing, and I'm trying to feel my feet on the floor, and I'm trying to relax. And that is ultimately how you gradually desensitize yourself to these things.
Sure. Right. Awesome. Okay, so let's move into mindfulness now. I think we all may have a slightly different understanding of what mindfulness is, but just talking about it in broad terms, there's businesses that now have mindfulness programs for their employees. Mindfulness has been around for so long as like a meditation practice where you're being aware. That's how I understand it in general. But as it pertains to healing from an injury, you mentioned, being mindful. So, why don't we dive into that? What's your understanding of mindfulness, and how can it be utilized when recovering from an injury?
So mindfulness, there can be so many differences for mindfulness, but in the context of recovery, I would say it is the ability to be completely present without judgment and with an attitude of curiosity and openness.
Awesome.
That would be mindfulness.
Awesome. So what wouldn't be mindfulness then is someone coming in and going, oh, fuck, like I need to heal faster. That would be an example of, say, breaking mindfulness. You're not mindful when you're doing that, right? That's self-judgment.
Absolutely. Or again, if you're to talk about the context of somebody who injured themselves and is wanting to go back to the gym or just activities of daily life, let's say someone has tweaked their back. They tweaked their lower back. So now every time they go to do a deadlift, let's say, they go into it with this mindset of, oh, Jesus Christ, my back isn't fucking good today. If I pull too hard or if I put too much weight on the bar, my back will absolutely implode. So now you're putting all of these thoughts into your mind that have nothing to do with what's going on in the present moment.
Right.
Because every single moment of every single day is a new experience to experience different sensations or different outcomes with whatever you're doing. So that, I mean, that really is kind of in a nutshell why mindfulness is so helpful for healing from injury, but more specifically healing from chronic injury, because the word chronic means that it's been going on for a long time. And the human body really isn't that fragile. It heals really fast, just like even with the brain injury example. Remember I said that after 4 to 8 weeks, structurally, your brain has already healed.
Sure.
So what's causing the chronicity? What is causing these pains to be so chronic? Well, it's in the mind. It must be. It's because you're putting this lens on where it's, well, yesterday my lower back hurt. The day before my lower back hurt. Every time that I go to do X, Y, and Z activity, it triggers my lower back to hurt even more. So you end up living this life where it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of lower back pain or of concussion headaches or of being afraid to snakes or whatever it may be. That's where the mindfulness piece is so important in chronic injury. I'm not going to say it's important it definitely is important for acute injury, but especially for chronic injury, mindfulness is the only way out.
Yeah. And I presume you pair the mindfulness with, let's make this real concrete. And I think this is a perfect segue into just as a regular dude who goes to the gym, I've got, fuck it, I'm going to put my foot on camera, bro. I've got let me stand up and balance. So I had an ankle injury from riding a unicycle. I've had multiple accidents where I've ended up on crutches for like 8 weeks, doing some stupid shit like grinding rails downstairs, but hell, it was fun, dude. No regrets.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
But dude, I never really listened to my doctor. I did the stretches and the exercises that he mentioned to like do something with my calf or something and get my ankle flexion back. Now, I know there's technical terms for this. This is where you come in, whatever. But let's keep it simple. My fucking, see this foot here? It doesn't bend up as much as it should. I wish I could give you a visual, but really,
No, I see it, man.
my calf as much as my other ankle goes up. So when I'm at the gym, and I think this is a pretty common problem, but when I'm doing squats, I can't do proper squats with good form unless I'm like standing on some blocks or something that is lifting up my heel. Now, as a complete novice in all this, I don't really know what I'm doing. I just feel I can get better form if I'm standing on some blocks when I'm doing my squats, and I use the squat rack. I know it's like assisted, but without it, I feel like I'm fucking my body up. So now that you mention it, I'm not actually fully present. I'm often constantly thinking, oh, fuck, there's my stiff ankle again. This kind of sucks. I've had it for years. I don't even know if I do the stretches, it's really gonna actually come back. So yeah, I mean, I'm being affected by this. So as far as mindfulness goes, I know I could be aware and let go of the self-judgment and catch myself as I'm doing it. But yeah, perhaps what do you have to share on this? I'd really love for my ankle to just do what it does. So what would you suggest for me? What should I do?
In your specific example.
Yep.
Because it's such a broad thing to tell people that, oh, if you have any chronic anything, chronic pain, chronic whatever, just be mindful. Well, fuck me, that's way too broad. You got to pair the mindfulness with certain instructions. So in regards to the instructions that I would suggest for you, it would be that next time you're squatting, mindfulness is being present and paying attention. So I want you to be mindful about where your foot pressures are. And what that means is when you are standing, right before you descend into a squat, and even while you're descending and coming up and down on the squat, where can you feel your body weight smushing into the bottoms of your feet? Is it a lot on the backside where the heels are? Is it a lot on the outsides where the outside edge of your foot is? Is it a lot on the inside edge of your foot? Are you scrunching up your toes? Do you have your weight so far pushed forward that you can only feel weight in your forefoot? So that's foot pressures, and also the right and left imbalance.
Right.
Is there disproportionately more weight in my right foot versus my left foot? When I'm descending down, do I notice that all of a sudden, as I get to a certain point in the squat, I go from a 50-50 weight distribution between right and left, where all of a sudden I hit this point in the squat where all of a sudden it becomes 80% on the left foot and 20% on the right foot for a split second, and then it goes back to 50-50. So number one, pay attention to your foot pressures, and that will inform you of where you may need to put more work into in regards to mobilizing the bones in your foot, or mobilizing the bones in your ankle, or mobilizing the bones in your shin. Even can sometimes be related to chronic ankle sprains. So that's number one.
Do you mind just quickly expanding on that? That's fascinating to me. So you said mobilize bones. I'm basic. I don't even know what that means. And my mind instantly thinks, isn't it something to do with the muscle being tight? So could you elaborate on what you mean by bone mobility, or whatever the heck you just said?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I use these terms very loosely because as a separate topic, just real quick, the fitness industry likes to fetishize kind of certain terms and words, when really, as you know from all the spirituality things that you're into, they're all just symbols that point to a certain concept.
Absolutely.
So when I say mobility, what I mean is just being able to move these things. Okay. Right. So mobility of the bones means, can you move the bones in the way it should? Now the foot has 26 bones and 33 joints. 26 bones. They're all supposed to be able to move and squish into the floor and become rigid when you push off of the floor.
Yeah.
If these bones cannot move, what attaches to bones, Brandon?
Tendons, ligaments,
and
muscle.
And muscles, exactly. So if your bones are tight, that means your muscles are going to be tight, because they're locking your bones in place for a reason. Again, it could be for a variety of reasons, but if we're on the topic of chronic injury and chronic pain, let's just say that your bones are locked up because your brain thinks that, oh, fuck, Brandon's in the gym again. He's going to give himself another ankle sprain. So we might as well lock that foot up into a rigid block.
Interesting. Yep.
Now, what I have found with my clinical practice, as well as a lot of the mentors who have taught me about biomechanics in the past, it is oftentimes a losing battle if you are trying to solve chronic pain by making this muscle stronger and this muscle looser and stretching out this muscle while tightening up this other muscle. What's a better way to do things is just to get your bones to move and articulate the way they should, because your muscles are what holds your bones together. Right? Let's say this is a joint right here, right? This is an elbow joint, let's say. There's a muscle that attaches across both joints that helps decelerate all these types of movements.
Right.
And if the muscles are set up to decelerate the movement of the bones, then wouldn't it be a more helpful heuristic in regards to improving or reducing pain and improving movement quality? Wouldn't it be a more helpful heuristic to focus on moving the bones so that the muscles can then reflexively do what they need to do, rather than trying to consciously override your body's natural movement patterns and say, oh, this one particular muscle out of the dozens of muscles in my foot or my ankle or my calf needs to be stretched out. No, let's just get the bones to articulate and move as they should. The muscles will then reflexively act on those bones as they should in a healthy, normal functioning foot. And then that's when you're going to get your results in regards to improving your mobility and getting rid of the pain.
Right on.
So to tie that all back into being aware and mindful of your foot pressures as you're squatting. The reason why I said that is oftentimes a chronic ankle sprain person, just like I said before, will have this locked up foot for whatever reason it may be.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is feel your whole foot smushing and kind of melting and relaxing into the floor, because that's when all the bones are going to just drop.
Yeah.
Under the force of gravity, the bones are kind of just going to drop and splay into the floor. And because the bones are allowed to move and splay and drop into the floor with the help of gravity, then the muscles, once again, are going to reflexively act on the bones, and then you'll have a mobile foot in regards to both the muscles and the bones and the joints.
Fuck, dude, I am putting that on repeat, and I'm going to listen to it on my way to the gym and listen to that 5 times what you've just said. Quick pause. Zoom's going to kick us off because they've got an update or something. There's a time cap, so we're going to restart the call, and then I'll join this together and we'll continue. Fantastic, dude.
Let's do it.
See you in a second. We're back. So awesome. So let's just retouch on where we were at, and then I'd love to move into, if you're open to it, into sort of taking a general lifting routine for muscle mass into something that's more functional, where we cover mobility, flexibility, balance, mental well-being, and what's like the ultimate workout for just a great general overall all-arounder health-oriented approach to going to the gym. So I'd love to touch back on my fundamental understanding of what you're saying is essentially, I got a little bit lost when I was trying to process what you're saying regarding the bone joint and the muscle, and then how that sort of ties back into the mindfulness. But from what I understand, basically, if I were to go to the gym and do my squats again, I'm paying attention to all the pressure points in my feet, really paying attention, where does my knee move? Where's the pressure on my feet? And I'm paying attention to that. And fundamentally, what I hear you saying is that ultimately I want to train sort of my mind-body connection, or my mind-muscle connection, and teach my mind that, hey, it's okay. You're not going to injure yourself. We're going to ease back into this. And with that, fundamentally, my ankle, I would hope, you can see the doubt in myself. I'm like, surely this is not just my ego coming in and saying, no, that can't work. But if I keep being mindful, say great things to myself, and just be aware, I can gradually restore that flexion in my ankle. Is that fundamentally what you're saying?
Yes. So here's where, and it ties back to my kind of brain injury recovery as well. So
Hmm.
Mindfulness is extremely important. It is the absolute key to get out of chronic pain. Without it, you will not get out of chronic pain. With that being said, mindfulness has to be paired with certain leading questions that a coach or therapist or chiro or physio or whatever
Yeah.
is feeding you. So with that being said, yes, you paying attention to your foot pressures while you're squatting will be the first and very important step in being mindful and solving your own ankle issues. Because you might come back after 3 weeks of squatting with this super mindful mentality where you're paying attention to your foot pressures, and you might tell me, hey, Pat, I think so when I'm squatting, my right foot, the chronically injured one, I'm always on my forefoot. Like I can barely feel any weight in my heel at all.
Yeah.
Okay, well then that's going to tell me that then, okay, it's probably that Brandon's heel, right heel is locked up and it cannot roll forward like this. Your heel bone is supposed to be able to like roll forward and twist and move in a variety of different ways. So then if I know that that particular bone is locked up, then I got to feed you a bunch of different exercises that will get that heel bone moving a little bit more and give you further homework in regards to, okay, Brandon, now we're doing this special kind of squat where your heel is elevated so that your heel can stay on, it can be grounded on a surface. And then now the next time as you're squatting this time around, I just want you to feel for the relationship of where your center of gravity is. So kind of where the weight of your pelvis is in relation to that right foot.
Sure.
And then we just keep going down this rabbit hole of being mindful and paying attention to certain specific sensations, getting the information that those sensations are telling you,
Yeah.
and then creating a new iteration of the game plan to keep going down the rabbit hole of recovery.
Sure. Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Fantastic. Hell yeah, dude. Thanks for sharing. Awesome. Is there anything else you want to touch on in terms of, well, I think your own concussion is a fantastic case study to share that anyone that might be experiencing something similar. So before we, I'd love to take the conversation from just general lifting weights into something more functional. But before we do that, is there anything you feel you'd like to touch on here, or have we covered it? Up to you.
No, man, I think we've covered it. Just again, like I floundered for a year and a half, the past year and a half with how I handled and honestly how the healthcare system was set up to handle my concussion issues. And so if I could just be of use to whoever the fuck is listening and just say, hey man, like mindfulness is the key, even though you've been in pain for so long, today can be a new day and today can give you new results and new experiences and new sensations, as long as you are willing to be brave enough to take in as much sensory input as possible. In other words, be mindful. As long as you're brave enough to take in as much sensory input as possible and not freak out about it,
yeah,
then recovery is possible. So that I feel like it would be the best way to close the concussion injury loop of this conversation.
Awesome, man. Fantastic. Love it. Cool. All right. So I reckon, yeah, let's take a quick dive into, let's talk what I understand as I understand the term, like functional fitness. My understanding of it is it's something that's a bit more, you're not becoming a bodybuilder to enter a competition. For me, personally, my number one reason for going to the gym is just to enhance mental well-being. I just feel better in my daily life when I'm working at the gym. There seems to be some sort of biological, magical, neurological effect that has on me, and I feel great. I think clearer, my head's clearer, and I've got more energy. It's fantastic. And then my secondary would be, just training the mind to have discipline and pushing myself and to lift more weight. And the next session, the progression is really nice. And then thirdly is really just putting on muscle mass, really just for the sake of it at this point. But I feel a call to, once I've done that for a bit, I've got just a nice little basic routine. I just keep it consistent, stick to the foundations, eat a little bit more. It's nothing complex at all. I'm just very consistent. Same exercises. I do compound movements. I train, for me personally, 3 times a week. And I don't spend any more than 35 to 40 minutes in the gym, and I just do like deadlifts, overhead press, bench press, squats, all these sort of big compound movements with maybe a couple isolation exercises, just little ones like whether it's bicep curls or shrugs or whatever. So very simple. Yeah, so I'm looking for a more all-around approach where just in general, I just love to feel healthy and energetic and well, both mentally and physically. So as I transition to sort of change my workout program eventually, yeah, this conversation can go many ways, but basically I'm wondering from you, Patrick, like, I'm looking at Aubrey Marcus. I think are you familiar with Aubrey?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, he seems like, I haven't listened to his stuff in quite a while, but I feel quite inspired by him and how he talks about flexibility, mobility, balance, and all proprioception, all these sort of things. And I know you talk a lot about this too. And so does Jason. And actually saw one of Jason's recent posts, and he put his like top 5 list in order of like what's most important. And he put like, no, don't quote me on it, but I think it's like mobility at the top. And then he listed like strength, flexibility, endurance, power. I'm kind of wondering your perspective on that. Like, if I were to transition to a functional routine, roughly what would be like a basic workout plan? And let's say I'm a busy guy, but I do value my health and fitness. So I'm willing to give 40 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week. I'm curious, let's start with, what are your like top 5 in order things to focus on if my goal is energy and well-being and feeling healthy? And then where do I start with creating a workout plan for myself?
Okay, I think that the top 5 most important things, it's a cop-out answer, but unfortunately it's the true answer. Mm-hmm. Top 5 most important things is going to be different for every single person. Because as you said, like you read where there was a list where top 5 things, and the first thing was mobility. That absolutely may be the case for somebody who is 60 years old and has been sedentary for most of their life. If you can't get into certain positions with your body, mm-hmm. then what's the point of doing X, Y, and Z exercise that requires you to get into those positions? Because you're just not going to be able to exercise if you can't move into those positions.
Right.
Conversely, for somebody like you, who I think, I might be wrong, but other than the ankle, you're a pretty mobile guy, right? Not too many aches and pains and niggles that on your body. Then I wouldn't say for you that mobility is your top priority. But, and this is a whole different conversation. I'm not trying to have like a one-on-one consult with you right now, because that would be a waste of listeners' time or whatever.
Do whatever you want to. I don't care.
But in regards,
yeah.
Okay, in regards to the question of like, okay, let's say somebody has 3 or 4 days and they have, let's say 60 minutes to work out.
Yep.
3 times a week, and they are looking for a routine that's functional. And to me, what functional means is that you have all the traits that an athlete has, but just obviously not at that level of performance, right? Because if an athlete can run, jump, they have good hand-eye coordination, foot-eye coordination, they have good proprioception, they have good timing, they have good rhythm, they have good balance, and they have a decent amount of muscle mass and strength and power and cardio, well, then I feel like that is, to me, that's what a functional human being is. You could just do a lot of things.
Right.
Right? Like, functional to me means that the range of things that you are able to do, and not even physical things, right? Like mental things, like whatever. The range of things that you're able to do is super fucking wide. And if that's what we're training for, then we do have to train for all of these athletic qualities that I just touched on: agility, balance, coordination, speed, strength, power, hypertrophy, mobility.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is also one of these qualities. So let's just say, with the assumption that that's what a functional training routine is, to be as athletic as possible so that you have the largest range possible of activities that you are able to do.
Right.
That's the assumption.
Sure.
So if that's the case, let's say that you have 3 days per week, 60 minutes per session to work out. Mm-hmm. I would, if I were you, structure my workout as follows. I would do probably 10 minutes of a full body cardio modality where you're going at a nasal breathing pace. So number one, the full body is important. So as an example, those air bikes with the arms and the legs?
Yep.
That's an excellent option. Running is an excellent option. Elliptical is an excellent option. Whatever full body cardio modality that you can do at a nasal breathing pace. Nasal breathing, because you want to keep it aerobic.
Yep.
So you're building that aerobic base, that foundation of your cardio. And nasal breathing also because you don't want to make it so intense that you burn out. It's a warm up. You're just trying to move fluid through your body. You're trying to loosen up the joints. You're trying to get into your body. You're trying to warm up. So I would start with that 10-minute full body cardio warm up. Then as a secondary component to your warm up, once you got all those feel good hormones revving through your body and you're focused and your body feels good and everything, then I would move into whatever sensory motor drills or exercises that you should be doing specific to you. So sensory motor meaning things that you are really paying attention to how you feel, where your weight is being placed, where your joints are in relation to one another. That's proprioception, how your balance is. So, and this is going to vary from person to person, but as a general guideline, some kind of breath work is very important. And I don't mean breath work in regards to like the spirituality side of things, where oftentimes breath work in the spiritual community is about either speeding up your breathing to kind of elicit like that fight or flight response to kind of get you amped up, or slow breathing to kind of down regulate your nervous system and get you in a chilled state. That's not what I mean. What I mean by breath work is using breathing to improve your mobility. Can you expand your rib cage all the way out and all the way in? Can you breathe in a way where every inhalation is actually decompressing and lengthening your spine, and every exhale is kind of creating this whole body compression of your body? That's the best place to start for in regards to improving your movement quality. So I would always have some kind of breath work involved in there. And then other than that, it would be very specific to the person that I'm training or whoever it is that's doing the training program. So for you, it might be that you do 3 minutes of some kind of breath work where you're focusing on this big inhalation and full exhalation. Then after that, again, for you, you might focus on, okay, I'm going to take a little 10-pound counterbalance, and I'm going to maybe even close my eyes and focus again on where my foot pressures are as I'm going very slowly down the squat, and I'm kind of letting gravity just pull all my bones towards the ground, and I'm just feeling, being mindful about it. So that would be the warm-up. Number one, 10-minute full body cardio, just to get everything loosened up, get the body warm. Then I would do some sort of breath work, because that's, in my opinion, probably the most important sensory motor exercise for most people. And then whatever other sensory motor things you need to do. Based off of maybe what a coach tells you or whatever. Then after that, I would move into a small dose of plyos, maybe 5 or 10 minutes of plyometric activity. And plyometric activity is anything that's kind of, to oversimplify it, but useful heuristic, plyometric is anything that's bouncy, right? Over time, as we age, we lose that springiness in our step, right? We lose the ability to actually use our tendons and ligaments and muscles and bones as one unit to kind of act like a spring, to coil in and coil out, coil in and coil out. So this could be as simple as 5-10 minutes of jump rope, or it could be as advanced as using one of those agility ladders and doing a bunch of different patterns on the agility ladder, or it could be doing like little hurdle hops as you see like soccer players do on the field, or anything that's bouncy is what you would be doing for the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Then the third portion of your workout, and again, to recap so that everybody's following along, first part is the warm-up, second part is plyos. Then the third part, you would be moving into what you're already doing, which are some pretty big compound lifts. I would choose 1 or 2 lifts. So each lift might take you 10 minutes to warm up to like 1 or 2 really heavy sets, right? So maybe you do a back squat, 5 sets of 6 to 8 with a 90-second rest in between. That's your first compound lift. And it'll only take maybe 10 minutes to get up there. And then your second compound lift, whatever it is that you care about, name something that you enjoy doing these days.
Yeah, well, for me, just as an isolation exercise, I'm interested in building like my upper back or my traps. But I'm just doing shrugs, so it's not a compound movement.
Okay, so let's say upper back and traps. Can I give you an example of like a trap bar deadlift then, let's say?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, so we'll go trap bar deadlift. That's your second exercise. And again, you're going 5 sets, 6 to 8 reps. And so that's the third part of your workout, which is heavy compound lifts. So now you're getting the strength component of things, and you're getting the bone density benefits and the strength benefits and all these things. Fourth part of your workout would be your hypertrophy or your muscular endurance work. to build muscle and to get your muscles conditioned to being able to fight through that burning sensation.
Right.
So many benefits here. You got the muscle building benefits, you got the bone density benefits, but you also have the buffering capacity benefits, which is actually, you can almost consider it like localized cardio. Like the more you can tolerate that burn in your muscles, the better that local area of your body is at buffering fatigue.
Right.
So the fourth part, that's all your hypertrophy muscular endurance work. So this would be where you throw in some either lighter compounds. So let's say like I don't know, a bench press 3 sets of 20, or a you mentioned upper back work. So it might be pull downs 3 sets of 20. So that would be your higher rep compound exercises, as well as your isolation exercises.
Yeah.
And now this fourth part of the workout, the hypertrophy stuff, that's probably for most people going to be the biggest and most time consuming part of the workout. Whereas for you, like let's say now you did the 10-minute warm up, sensory motor drills, that puts you 15 minutes into your workout. Then you finish the plyos, which is 10 minutes. So now you're 25 minutes into the workout. Then you do the strength, 1 or 2 compound lifts that maybe take 10 minutes each. So now you got 45 minutes of the workout. Let's just say you put another 15 minutes into hypertrophy stuff. So let's say 3 sets of 20 bench press, 3 sets of 20 pull downs, and then throwing out random isolation exercises here, 2 sets of 15 bicep curls, 2 sets of 15 shrugs. That covers it for the hypertrophy section of the workout. And then finally, with whatever remaining time you have, you're going to build the engine. You're going to do some cardio.
Sure.
So that could be on whatever cardio modality you want, anywhere from 10 to 30 to 40 to whatever, however long you want, depending on how much time you have. But that's your cardio, and of all different forms. So whether it's like you like doing intervals of 2 minutes at a time, resting 1 minute, or whether you just like setting a timer for 10 minutes and going at a chill pace, doesn't matter what form of cardio, do some form of cardio. So that, in my opinion, would be the perfect kind of workout plan, functional workout plan that covers all the bases of what functional fitness means to me.
Yeah, brilliant, man. I appreciate that. Man, I'm just going to be putting this on repeat. Like, when I listen to it in my car, there's so much good stuff here. I appreciate this so much. Fuck yeah, dude. That's awesome. I really appreciate that. With our remaining time, I'd love to now, if you're ready, take the conversation into sort of spirituality and psychedelics. Very interesting to me, and I'm sure for you as well. So why don't we start with, why don't we just start with questions? So I see that you support MAPS. For those who don't know, I forgot what it stands for, but there's a lot of psychedelic research going on these days. In Australia, it's just been, I think, the first country to legalize certain psychedelics, for therapeutic use. So very interesting things going on. So yeah, start with that, Patrick. Why do you support MAPS?
So MAPS is the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, and it's not that I am a like MAPS dick writer specifically. I just am a big proponent of psychedelics in general, because I feel like it is the best way, not the best way, it's not for everybody, but it is an invaluable tool for increasing your awareness. And awareness of everything, awareness of your thoughts, awareness of your emotions, awareness of your physical sensations, if we're going to tie this back to chronic injury, awareness of how you communicate, just awareness of everything. I don't think there's a more powerful tool out there that can improve your awareness. With that being said, because it's such a powerful tool, it's not for everybody. But in a nutshell, that is why I support psychedelics, because it has the potential to do so much good. When we live in a world that has so much chronic illness, so much chronic suffering, so much greed and inequality, and all of this stuff seems to be driven by unconscious reflexive desires and thought patterns and emotion loops. Well, if we can bring awareness to some of these unconscious desires and thought patterns and emotion loops, then that's kind of, in my opinion, could be the first step in righting the ship.
I'm so excited about this conversation. So Man, so many roads we could take this down based on what you said, but I'd love to sort of, I think it'd be great to roll with, yeah, look, so there's a lot going on in the world at the moment. And honestly, it's not just right now, or even the last few years with COVID and everything happening. It's so much more than that. And shit's been happening, you know, since whenever the birth of time, whenever the heck that is. You know, world wars going on. You got World War II. You got the economic depression. I'm just moving this more from not so much fitness necessarily now and injury and boxing and concussions, but just living life in general. Because I feel that we're both in self-improvement. We're both human beings. We all have struggles and challenges. We have thoughts. We have emotional patterns. And yeah, ultimately we've got challenges. And what led me onto this sort of spiritual path and into learning about awareness was, well, suffering. And point blank, quite namely, a very significant event, which is when my mum died and passed away, or at least passed on from the physical body anyway. And yeah, it hit me hard. And that sort of got my soul searching for, fuck, man, like there's got to be something more than this pretty intense suffering that I'm feeling, and that I know others go through as well to varying degrees. It can get really dark sometimes. I think everyone's been, you know, to some extent in states of depression, anxiety, stress, stress out the wazoo in today's world. So I guess where I'm taking this conversation is like, what's sort of been your journey into, I guess, well, first seeing the value of awareness in your own life and how that can actually benefit you. How did you get there? Oh, awareness is something I should be focusing on and learning about and actually being aware.
I think number one, growing up in a household where the leaders of the household had very poor awareness and therefore made very poor decisions. It's a good teacher, right? It's a good teacher because you learn that, okay, if you're not aware of your own thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, then the result could be just a lot of just despair and violence and tension. So that's number one. Then number two, I really got into the Beatles when I was 8 years old. And when I was 8 years old, I'm a millennial, so I had access to Wikipedia. So you just type into Wikipedia the Beatles, and you slowly realize these guys were on acid and cannabis throughout making most of their music. There must be something to this. Then fast forward a few years later to when I'm 14, to when I did my first mushrooms trip. And it was such a mind-bending experience where what I took out of it was that the only thing that I really can control, not necessarily my finances, not necessarily my material possessions, not necessarily anything other than what goes on in my mind and body. I remember taking that away from my first ever mushrooms trip. And because of that, I think for the most part, obviously you get caught up in materialism and all these things. For the most part, I was able to live a very in tune life with my mind and body and not be distracted by clout and material things for most of my teenage years, which then led me down the path of just being generally like happy and fit and healthy and being into athletics and stuff, which then led me into the work that I'm doing now. So psychedelics has a very near and dear place in my heart because I don't think I absolutely can't credit any of what I'm doing now to myself. A lot of it was kind of influenced by the lessons that I learned when I was a young teenager experimenting with drugs.
Sure. Right. And so when you say you listen to the Beatles, yeah, you know, you've got the song like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and there's this ongoing thought that surely the Beatles were on acid when they said that, because you take the initials of Lucy, Sky, Diamonds, LSD. But apparently in interviews they denied it or something. So to this day, I don't know, but my best guess would be it had something to do with LSD, just maybe. And Yellow Submarines and shit, and like the song All You Need Is Love, which I listened to.
Octopus's Garden.
Yeah, the Octopus's Garden. Oh, like what's going on here? Yeah, no. Fascinating stuff. Okay, so that's interesting. And fitness, like, man, that could be a fantastic modality. Like, I like to use the term, actually, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but sadhana or sadhana. I think it's more of like a Hindu or Indian term for basically a meditation practice. And you know, I used to think all a meditation practice was like sitting like a Buddha in lotus position with your eyes closed and like trying to be peaceful or just aware of your thoughts passing by. And although that can be a meditation practice or sadhana, there's so many routes, you know, dude, there's Zen, there's trying to solve Zen kwans, the unsolvable Zen kwans, and there's you know, religion as well. They have all their rites and rituals, which can be of some benefit. But there's just so many, yeah, like paths you can go on in learning how to master your mind. Because you mentioned on a psychedelic, you realize like my experience of the world is like dictated largely, if not all, by my own mind and my thoughts, which are all part of the mind and everything. So I guess where am I trying to go with this? It's kind of like, it seems like to me, fitness, correct me if I'm wrong, has sort of been your primary modality, which brings you to where you are today. Would that be an accurate statement in terms of like developing your mind and understanding that fitness is your modality?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just being, or I guess, interacting with the physical world and also tuning into what's going on in my body has been my pathway for improving my awareness. Whereas, as you said, like people can get it in a multitude of different ways. You can access those lessons and those lessons from being really into playing guitar. Yep. Or whatever, right? But my modality has been through tuning into my relationship with the physical environment as well as my own internal sensations. So fitness, in other terms.
Sure. And so and so fitness, like, let's say, let's take like a concrete example of you fall into some kind of, let's say, a bad habit. So think of a bad habit you have, that may sort of resurface sometimes. And maybe it's like, let's say eating junk food, for example. Maybe this isn't yours, but this is actually one of mine. Sometimes I will let sort of some negative thoughts start coming in, and it's generally due to suppressing an emotion, whether it's loneliness or unworthiness in some sort. I will go to junk food as sort of like this sort of really ingrained pattern of, if I eat the junk food, I'll get a temporary high. I'll get some pleasure and I can kind of forget about this uncomfortable feeling that I don't want to feel. And it might be, you know, some sort of little past trauma or something that happened to me when I was younger. I've done so much exploration to this. One thing being, like, when I was younger, I had a best friend and we gradually grew apart, and we just sort of got interested in different things. And I was actually so attached. I didn't realize until later on in my life, I was so attached to that friend. And I even had feelings of jealousy that like other friends were better for this friend that I lost. And I thought maybe I'm boring and stuff. And I didn't really realize I was telling myself this stuff because I must have suppressed it. It was so painful to me to lose a friend. It's sort of come out later in my life where I've tried to deal with this really uncomfortable feeling of feeling unworthy of friendship. And so I would like go to fucking junk food to feel like better, because I know like if I have the junk food, it tastes so fucking good. 10 minutes and I'm just free of problems, baby. Everyone's got their thing, I reckon. But that's just sort of my share. So for you, I guess, what's my question here? I think it's something around when you find yourself in a bad habit, and generally I think that's accompanied by, maybe a negative mindset, falling out of it a bit, or having some resistance to life. I guess, yeah, what do you do? Do you go, right, I'm going to sit down and be aware. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do some journaling. What's your like plan of action to get out of this funk, this rut, this depression?
Okay, so obviously nobody in this conversation right now and nobody on earth is perfect, can catch these behavior patterns as soon as they happen. Oftentimes what happens, and now I'm just speaking personally for myself, oftentimes what happens is that, let's say, so porn addiction, every millennial guy, or whatever, I would imagine deals with this to some scale.
Sure.
You catch yourself doing this behavior, but you continue to do the behavior. And only when you have reached a certain number of times of you catching yourself doing it, or it has resulted in X, Y, and Z negative outcomes in your life, that you then make the conscious decision to stop doing it. But the big thing with psychedelics and awareness and mindfulness, if we're to stay on this conversation, is that it allows you, psychedelics, meditation, all of these things, allows you a shorter time period where you're doing these behaviors before you catch it and decide to stop it, rather than letting it stretch out unconsciously for months, years, or decades on end before you finally consciously catch it and decide. So the big thing with the meditation and the psychedelics and the awareness thing isn't that all of a sudden you're going to be fucking perfectly healthy and your behaviors and your emotions and your thoughts are going to be all in order. No, it's just that you can catch yourself kind of drifting off path a little bit earlier. And so to go back to your question, when I do finally, sometimes it takes a while, but when I do finally catch myself drifting away from a healthy lifestyle, it really just is as simple as building a plan to stop it. Whether that's like you're doing like okay, I'm going to do a 30-day challenge because according to the research, it takes 30 days for your brain to kind of rewire itself away from a negative behavior pattern. I might do a 30-day challenge of no porn, right? No. Or it might just be that it might be in another context. I constantly catch myself consuming too much caffeine. So once I catch it, it might be that I now have to create a game plan for myself where it's okay, this coming week, I'm going to do 80 milligrams a day. The next week, I'm going to do 60 milligrams a day. The week after that, I'm going to do 40 all the way until I'm down to 0. But no matter how you get out of the negative behavior, out of the negative habit, the common theme is that you are consciously building a game plan for yourself that you will follow. So in other words, you're coaching yourself out of it.
Yes.
In the same way a coach would bring you, like, write out a game plan and a workout plan for you or whatever, you're just writing it out for yourself and following it for yourself.
Yes. Yeah, dude, I just resonate with the whole goblet of just what you share here. But yeah, like awareness and decision, right? What's been my part too is very similar to what you're saying. It's like first become aware. I do a lot of different meditation practices, but whatever's going to dig out the shit that I'm unaware of, that I don't even know is there, all these unconscious, subconscious thought patterns that are driving my behavior, like shit that happened in the past that I still act on and react to today as if it's real. Bringing it out and then constantly becoming aware of the pattern playing out and then making a decision to break it and then remind myself and be aware of the actual benefit of what it would be of giving up pornography, giving up the junk food, giving up the pattern, why that's actually happening in the first place, and then what could be. And now we're just getting into, you could say, self-transcendence, self-transformation, self-development. Who's that better person that I could be? And then fucking just going all out on that. So yeah, fantastic. It's a very broad topic, but where I'd love to take this, if you're open to it, yeah, is like, I think in my journey, I've sort of gone from self-improvement habits, changing habits, developing good habits and all that stuff, sort of going into the deeper questions about God, reality, spiritual enlightenment, Nirvana, Samadhi. To me, this is the most fascinating shit in the whole fucking entire planet.
Oh, me too, dude. Absolutely.
Yeah. So like, man, it's like, what question do I start with? It's like, I'm very interested in your thoughts or your own exploration of beyond just living a good life and developing great habits. What, in your mind or your current understanding, is like, what is God? What is unity? What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? But let's keep it a bit narrower here. So for clarity, like, what do you believe the Buddha is speaking about when he says everybody can attain nirvana? What does that mean to you? What does that do for you?
We are definitely just doing a mental philosophical circle jerk here because who the fuck knows? But as I have come to understand it in my own life, Nirvana or enlightenment or heaven, the concept of heaven, as I understand it, is kind of a synonym for being completely and utterly in the present moment. That's what heaven and Nirvana is, because that's when you, as a self, as an ego, as a collection of thought patterns and emotion patterns and behavior patterns, that's when you fall away, and whatever's left that's doing the activity that you're doing where you're being fully present, I don't know what that is, pure consciousness, that's a little portion of the entire field of consciousness that exists out there. I don't know what it is, but all I know is that it feels damn good when you, the self, you, the ego, falls away from everything because you are being completely present. And you can also consider that a death, right? Which is why I kind of consider that as a synonym for like heaven, right? Or Nirvana or whatever, right? And also as a side note, which is also the reason why I'm so addicted to these physical things like dancing and lifting weights and running and combat sports and snowboarding and all of these things, because that is it for me, the easiest gateway for me to become fully present, and maybe if I'm lucky experience a moment or two of nirvana where I'm so present that the self falls away.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No,
What would it be for you? What would
yeah.
your definition be?
Yeah, I mean, very, very similar, right? So I'm very like, I really can't say a lot about it, quite simply because I still find myself the vast majority of my life in my egoic self. And so for me to speak on what it's like to be fully present constantly, there's not a lot I can say about it. I have shared a little bit about on this YouTube channel and between some close friends and stuff. Otherwise, these days, I keep a lot of it to myself, and I'm just quietly doing the work in the background because I feel that's where my time is best spent. But what I would love to say right now, just since you asked, I guess, is I've had in the last 3 years a series of glimpses of just pure, I could use a lot of terms here, but pure presence, bliss, just limitless joy. And I still feel like it's only scratching the surface of what all these saints, Indian yogis, gurus are speaking of. It's almost like a sort of a come down from mushrooms. Which is, for me, it's like sort of, I get a tingling feeling. I feel like I'm walking on clouds. I'm really light. I feel so content. One of the hallmarks of this state or this glimpse is like, I'm content, dude. Like, I am not longing for anything. And I didn't even realize how many things I was longing for, even on a subtle level, until I had these glimpses of this blissful state of being where I feel like I'm expanding into my external environment just subtly, and it could grow and grow. And when I read the descriptions of samadhi, or hear people's experiences on, say, 5-MeO-DMT, which I have experimented with, but I've never gone for the breakthrough dose. But I think I'd like to bring it back to the sober experiences you can have in samadhi, simply because I feel there's that's a big conversation. But for me, having sober experiences of these very ecstatic states has been the biggest breakthroughs and inspiring drive, because to realize that I can do this actually without psychedelics, as much as I do love psychedelics, I personally don't take them anymore. That's a whole nother conversation, and got nothing against him. But where my path is going naturally is trying to get these glimpses and expand them. But yeah, it's like a warm
Can I ask,
Sure.
what activities were you doing when you had these experiences, or did it just fully come spontaneously?
Spontaneously.
Huh.
Yeah, but I only believe
no preceding events or conversations or anything beforehand or anything like that.
Actually, no. Now that you mention it, I would say I'd have to think about this more and reflect on all of them. I'd say at least half of them spontaneous, but there are some where I've got I never know what to call him, but I would call him a guiding light. I met this man, the most peaceful man I've ever met in the Gold Coast when I was living there, Australia. about a year and a half ago, the most peaceful man I've met. It was meant to be. It was a divine meeting. Turned around one day, talked to a stranger just because I felt like it during the COVID times. And dude, I just met this peaceful dude. I could feel the energy emanating from him. It was crazy. I just wanted to learn from him. I could feel the peace in him. So often we have dialogues, sort of Jiddu Krishnamurti style. So if anyone knows of Krishnamurti, he was like, some would call him philosopher. I'd call him a saint, a saintly man who was truly realized. And maybe there's higher degrees of realization. I don't know. I'm still learning myself, but I can feel that Krishnamurti was very peaceful and he understood a lot about the mind. So we have these sort of Krishnamurti-esque dialogues, and basically, well, just a conversation, really. I'm asking questions and he's sharing his energy and his answers based on his own experience. And sometimes I will have a breakthrough in the understanding of how my own mind works. It's sort of something along the lines of, you could say, Advaita Vedanta, where it's sort of more of an, or Jnana yoga, which is more of an intellectual yoga. Yoga being union with God. I'm not talking about doing, dog poses and shit. I'm talking about yoga union with God. So yeah, dialogue has been the main ones. And I come to a breakthrough point where, I realize why I'm doing that negative behavior and I don't even need to. And then that's been followed by, sometimes a day or two of just freedom or this bliss. But yeah, the most interesting ones, I think, are the spontaneous ones. But I only think they're occurring because I'm putting the effort in. But beyond that, I can't say much of it. I just feel that there is a correlation between the efforts I put into understanding my own mind and doing my daily meditation practice and learning from my mentors, who I'm so glad to have in my life, who really do live peaceful lives. That's been the biggest contributor.
Okay. That is interesting. And did you have any of these experiences before you took the 7-month hiatus off of being active on social media and YouTube and things like that? Because I would imagine that it would be extremely difficult to have these experiences while you're plugged in to the machine.
Not necessarily. That hasn't been my experience. In my experience, it's very possible still to be scrolling through social media, but still doing the self-development work, the spirituality work, and having these glimpses. They're not super common, but they do happen. So I hang a lot around in sort of self-realization circles of those really interested in really taking this to the nth degree. And they do happen. So yeah, I mean, the biggest fucking crazy one, I can barely even get words out about it, it was like when I first moved to the Gold Coast about 2 years ago now, probably over 2 years ago. And dude, I was just lying down and I was reading this book it was compiled by a subscriber of the channel actualize.org by Leo Gura, who's popular in the self-realization space. And I just read one line in a book. It was midnight on funnily enough, a full moon. Interesting. But anyway, I was reading a book and I read one line and it was giving an example how sort of trying to help me understand what the individual self is and how that's actually an illusion. So there's one line in the book and it just said something like, he mentioned like an orange. Imagine you're looking at an orange. He said in the book, you are the orange and the orange is you. And it's not like I was thinking about it or trying to deconstruct what he meant by that. And just bang, like spontaneously, I read that sentence and I felt like I was high as a kite on fucking acid. And I had taken no psychedelics. I was just reading, going about my night. And this lasted, the most crazy thing is it lasted for 4 weeks where I felt like I was high on acid. Every morning I would wake up. I was only getting about I think the first few nights, I didn't even need sleep. I was just running on energy. And I started reading experiences of yogis. I was a bit disoriented, honestly, in the first week. But I started reading more experiences of other people and yogis, and apparently you can get to the point where, and I know some people in my life who are only sleeping about 4 to 5 hours, and they're the most peaceful and healthiest people I've ever met, which blew my mind about all the science and everything. And so that sort of expanded my mind. This can go into big conversations, but dude, 4 weeks, I felt like I was high in acid. And then I gradually felt myself sort of coming down. But that left me with a big impression on my whole life. And I realized that I can actually experience more of this. And sure enough, in the last couple of years since then, I've been having spontaneous experiences, and some not even spontaneous, but thanks to these dialogues with a mentor, that yeah, coming to understand my own mind, I just start having more, and I realize I can extend these through understanding my mind more, to the point where I could actually get to a place in my life where I've talked to a lot of people about this, but I really struggle to find someone who's resonates with me on this belief that I can live a life 24/7 in bliss, regardless of anything that happens externally in this world. I don't care about wars. If there's fucking the economy's going down, the only one I'm still unsure about is physical suffering. But 99% of suffering of any nth degree, the tiniest bit of resistance I have, I can banish from my life and live a life of joy. And I've got two examples in my life who I learn from, because I can see and feel it. And I've known them long enough now that, and experienced many miracles actually, which is another video, where I'm like, fuck, that is my inspiration. And I'm dedicating my life to this, to live a life in 24/7 bliss. Yeah, I'm just so excited.
I think it's possible too, man, because in recent memory, there have been so many examples, right? Like the guy who's still alive, Wim Hof, seems to constantly be in bliss, even in the most deepest points of physical agony. There was Ram Dass, and then you go back in time, and there was Buddha and Jesus and all fucking Prophet Muhammad and all these people, right? So I would agree with you. I think it's possible, but what is the fucking roadmap to get there, right? I suppose just the daily practice of meditation and community, and I don't know, man. Other than that, I don't know.
Sure, man. Yeah, I mean, we're all trying to figure it out, right? Yeah, just based on my ridiculous studies of scriptures, and like, dude, I've just made databases of fucking gurus, meditation teachers. I've tried to rank them based on my own limited understanding of where they're at in consciousness, what they say, where the cross correlations are. Dude, I'm a fucking addicted nerd about this shit, like 8 hours a day, every moment of spare time. At least what I found is that answer, just scripturally speaking, mixed with a little bit of personal experience, is that everybody's path is actually different. And you could objectively see this in your own direct experience, that, yeah, there may be some people that have followed the path of Buddhism. There's some people that have gone into Zen, and you hear of Zen masters and how they started with a Zen teacher. So it seems there's so many different modalities in which people have had success with, but you'll notice that everyone's life story is a little bit different, a little bit nuanced. I think there was this yogi called Milarepa or something. It could have been another dude, but back in the day. And I think Milarepa or someone else, he was a murderer, but he came onto the spiritual path and learned from a mentor. And I don't know if it was Advaita Vedanta, but yeah, it seems everyone's got their little nuanced story, and it's all different. So that's why I come back to the focus on myself and my own journey. What do I feel is working? I'm throwing shit out. What sticks? Do I read books? Do I do Zen? But I found some stuff that's currently working for me really well. Namely, one being a dialogue with someone who's really, really fucking peaceful, and learning from them. That's probably the number one that's working for me. But who knows, man, for you or for someone else, maybe your way is the way of devotion. Maybe your way is fucking zenning it out. I don't know, at a monastery in Japan. But there are some common things.
Let me ask how the guy that you met, that you turned around and talked to, this mentor of yours, how did he get to that place? And again, it's not like you get to a place and then it's like from that point on, you're like done, right? But like, how did he kind of come to this kind of life?
Yeah. So basically what he's shared with me, and to the extent of my curiosity, asking about his past, he shared a little bit about how he did some similar things to me in terms of picking up books, having a look at the Bhagavad Gita, or, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle or whatever. But, reading books, asking questions, being curious. But the thing that really moved and shifted him was meeting his guru. So, yeah, I think if anyone's listening in, or if you yourself familiar with Ram Dass, something like that. Ram Dass, I think the most fascinating thing about Ram Dass is not Ram Dass himself and his own journey, but specifically his encounter with Maharaji. He often speaks of Maharaji being his Indian guru back in the fucking psychedelic 60s, where everyone was fucking flying to India and going to see this guru called Maharaji. Fascinating guy. One book, by the way, which I think may be interesting to you or viewers listening as well, and has been for me, is called Miracles of Love. Type that in. It's about Maharaji and stories of devotees who have come to him and really learned a lot. But yeah, anyway, it was through his guru. And when I first heard about gurus, I've always naturally been a little bit skeptical. And I think there is a culture in the West of being skeptical precisely because there's been many gurus who have just scammed the shit out of people. So anyway, yeah, but when he shared that, nonetheless, I was fascinated and I wanted to pursue it earlier, mainly because I could feel the energy in him. It was so peaceful and it was authentic and I could tell. So I just had to learn more. And so anyway, I asked him more questions. And he said, yeah, his guru, like the guru, there's some level of devotion that you see in a true devotee to a guru, that this energy that Ram Dass tries to share, his sort of devotion to Maharaji, I understand completely because I now actually, yeah.
Interesting. So it's like, so this guy found himself a guru, which, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of like, and Hinduism is a rabbit hole to go because there's so many subsects and whatever, but it's like a Hindu tradition, right? So it's kind of like with the stuff that you're into is based off of like a lot of Hindu teachings, perhaps. Whereas again, it's like the label on it doesn't matter. It's whether it comes from Hinduism, Buddhism, fucking even just Wim Hof taking ice baths or whatever. But I guess what I'm trying to ask is, would you say that one of the easiest ways to kind of wrap your head around these concepts of being present and getting out of your own mind and whatever is Hinduism, especially with how they have gurus and all this stuff?
No, so I couldn't say that. You were on a good track though with the fact that Hinduism is a label that points to something. So I can understand though why Hinduism comes up in regards to gurus, precisely because like there are so many deities that Hindus or self-identifying Hindus will actually devote their lives to. So take Krishna, for example, who's often depicted with blue skin and as a god back in the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita stories and things like that. And then you've got like Hanuman. So Baba Nim Karoli, Ram Dass's guru, devoted himself, I think, to Hanuman, which was, I think, like is depicted as half monkey, half human. So there's all this sort of shit going on. I can see why, Hinduism is sort of tied into it. But the way I see things and have experienced things is that, like while Hinduism, it's more of like, it's technically not a religion. It's more of it offers an explanation of consciousness and reality and things like that. But a guru is, that's where it's a big conversation. What a guru is, the best way to learn is just to meet one. And then make of what you will, because gurus just aren't for some people. Some people never even heard of a guru. So I think any intellectualization I do on this is not going to help a lot. But a guru is quite simply a guru, and I wouldn't tie it to Hinduism necessarily. Yeah.
Okay. Just a guy who can reliably experience that kind of extreme state of being present that we discussed, and that you can pick his brain or soul about it. That's a guru.
Yeah, I'm very careful with my words here. I wouldn't quite say that, but again, I think when you said specifically someone who is basically realized this peaceful state and actually lives it on a consistent basis, I'm hesitant to use that as the final concluding definition of what a guru is, but that is along the right track. Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We could wrap it up. There's nothing, I mean, sure, we could go on forever, but maybe that's for another day. Yeah, dude. No, I'm personally good. I don't know if any other thoughts come to your mind. Otherwise, yeah, we can start wrapping up. Up to you.
I'm good too, man. That was a mind bender. A good one.
Good.
No, really interesting, man. Like always, because I'm always curious about, because I've seen your like stuff on social media too, and I'm always curious about how you kind of just marry these two concepts of you just on this endless chase for more awareness and understanding, while at the same time being so just so much in the online space, which has always been to me like like yeah, just the opposite of having enough mind space to achieve awareness and understanding. So anyways, it's always fucking interesting picking your brain, because you kind of live in these two almost conflicting worlds, to me at least. But you seem to have still gotten a long way in regards to being able to attain these states of bliss and elevated consciousness. So it's always interesting, dude.
Sure, man. Yeah. And I think in your own time, that would be something very interesting to explore, because what it sounds like is, yeah, like you're right. I don't see, it sounds like from what you're sharing is, yeah, you see this sort of, it does sound very black and white. Like, how can you be in the social media world, yet, pursuing the spirituality stuff and maybe having some glimpses of these states? It just doesn't seem to connect. Yeah. I mean, I'd encourage you to explore that further, because I think you'll find with more exploration that it isn't really that black and white. You can be very consistent being in the social media world, as well as, yeah, just becoming more present, more peaceful. It can absolutely be consistent. So yeah, no, anyway, interesting, very interesting stuff. Let's wrap it up, dude. This has been fantastic. I can't even get out in words my level of appreciation for you coming on and yeah, having this chat. And dude, it's just been so great. Thank you for the positive energy you bring. Again, just for the viewers listening in, I've got Patrick's Instagram in the description below. Get on it, dude. I have to say again, get on it. And I'm sure, Patrick, you wouldn't hesitate if someone's got like an injury or just any of the shit we chatted about. If they sent you like a DM or something, would you be open to that if they wanted to learn more from you?
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Yep. I'm happy to help, man. Just trying to reduce suffering in any way I can.
Yeah, dude. No, you'd be great for it. And do you have a website or anything, or any other social?
Yeah, I do. It is pkhealth.ca. So I write, not so much in recent months, but I do write a lot about all of the concepts that we just talked about on this podcast.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Awesome, man. No worries. Well, I'll let you go. What have you got lined up for the rest of the day, just out of interest, or is it the evening for you?
It is the evening, so it's 7 p.m. in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Right now, I'm gonna go lift some weights and then have dinner with some buddies.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah, dude. Nah, that sounds great. I'll leave you to it. I got some shit I'm gonna go do. So, yeah. Well, fantastic, man. I look forward to catching up in the future. Actually, I reckon we should set a date.
Yeah.
And I don't care if
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
off YouTube. We'll discuss. But yeah, it'd be great to catch up. I'd love to hear, yeah, what new stuff you've learned. It's just great to hang out with you and chat.
No doubt, man. Same to you, dude.
Cool. All right. I'll leave you to it.
All right, man. Good as,
mate. Catch you later.
see you, buddy.